Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Kaylin. I know it's been a minute since I've posted, and it's just because I couldn't find a video or a video idea that I felt really strongly about, and I don't want to put content out there that I wouldn't be interested in seeing, because obviously if I wouldn't be interested, I don't think other people would be interested. But the idea the other day came to me that I should address something that I myself have dealt with a lot since becoming a teen mom. And honestly, that is depression. And it's a really touchy subject to some people because depression looks differently to a lot of people. I'm not saying I was depressed enough to just sit in my bed and cry all the time, or depressed enough to where I couldn't eat anything. My depression was a lot different. I had my son at 19, and after having him, I did go through postpartum depression because of the shock of just being a teenager to being a mom overnight, obviously, and it's a big difference. I mean, you're a carefree teenager that does whatever you want, whenever you want, and then you're a mom and you're in charge of somebody else's life, and it hit me hard, and I struggled with it for almost a year, and at the time, I didn't know what I had was postpartum depression until probably 3 years down the road, when I looked back and I was like, wow, like, how did I not realize that I was struggling with something like this? Back then, what my depression looked like to me was just lashing out, feeling unworthy, feeling not good enough, associating myself with people who weren't good for me, but that made me feel better as a person, if that makes sense. I dealt with partying a lot after I had my son, because at the time, well, I was never really with my son's dad. It was kind of a fling, and I got pregnant at 18. And he had drug issues, he still does, and he's never really been a part of my son's life. But whenever I was 9 weeks pregnant with my son, I met another guy, and we were together from the time I was like 9 weeks until my son was about 6 months, and then we were off and on up until about 3 years ago, and my son is 5. So we were on and off for a good 2.5 years, or 3 years, including my pregnancy. And I feel like, I don't want to bash him now, because I feel like we have both changed as people, and we've both grown as people, and we're both older and everything along those lines. But we were very toxic for each other, and although we were toxic for each other, we kept going back to one another, and it's really hard to explain. But I feel like he is not the root of my depression, but he had a lot to do with it when my son was little. Whenever my son was first born, I stayed home with him as a stay-at-home mom until he was about 5 or 6 months old, and my ex was really controlling, like controlling to the point where he would take my car keys to work with him so that I couldn't go anywhere, and he would track my phone, and he wouldn't let me have any money, type of stuff. And I stayed in that relationship, and it plunged me into a depression because I went from doing my own thing to being controlled and being a mother and really not having a say in anything to do with my life. And we finally split, and I moved out on my own with me and my son. And so then I was a single parent, paying all of my own bills with little to no help, and that in itself sent me into a different type of depression of just literally never being able to do anything but be a mom and work. And at the time, I felt like I couldn't say anything about it because I put myself in this position. And my son's biological dad has never paid child support, so literally it was all on me. And my ex, who I was with during my pregnancy, didn't sign his birth certificate. He wasn't his biological father. So literally when we split, it was like he was no help at all either. And so I was taking care of a baby at 19 by myself in my own apartment, paying all of my own bills. And it's sad to say because I don't remember a lot of his infancy, his first year, because I worked so much. And when I didn't work, I was at home with him, but at the same time, like, I wasn't there because I was just so out of it all the time. Like, I was almost in robot mode. I just did what I had to do, and that was it. And I think because of my depression and because of where I was at in life, and I just wanted a family because I had a broken family growing up, like, I jumped in and out of relationships a lot, and I'm sure that didn't help because I just wanted to feel loved. I wanted my son to be loved. I wanted that family unit. And although I wanted that, I was also very picky with what I wanted in a man. And so I would jump into a relationship and then it wouldn't work out, and then I'd get all into a depression state again. And in my mind, even though I was young, and I'm sure a lot of teenage moms think this way. They're like, I'm a single mom. Nobody's ever going to want me. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm always going to struggle. I'm always going to feel alone. No one understands what I'm going through. And at the time, you know, I truly believed these things because it's what I was going through. And I also didn't really have any other single mom friends. Like, the other friends that I had that did have babies were in relationships and didn't know what I was going through. And then on top of that, if you haven't seen my previous video, my son also has a disability. So I was also dealing with that, and that in itself sent me into an even worse depression because I was like, why me? Why my son? Why did this have to happen? You know, why am I struggling so badly? Like, what did I do wrong to put myself here in this position? And I could never think positively. I was always a negative thinker. I always thought the worst. I overthought so much about everything. And, you know, looking back, it was a struggle because I did it to myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could have looked at things in a different light. Well, after a while, the struggle just got to be too much, and so I moved in with my mom. And the stress went down a little bit, but then there was the depression and the anxiety of, am I going to live with my mom forever? Am I always going to struggle like this? Am I always going to have to depend on my family to take care of my son? Am I always going to need this extra help because his dad won't step up and help me? And then I was like, and now look at me. I'm a single mom living with my mom. Who's going to want to be with me now? Who's going to think that I'm worthy enough to, you know, be a part of a relationship with, because I can't take care of my son on my own? And I mean, these are just things that always continuously went through my head, and I never felt good enough. And then, you know, I went into my whole partying stage where I was just like, YOLO, you know, my mom can watch my kid. I'm going to go out and do whatever I want. And, you know, I still held a full-time job. My son was always taken care of. He never went without, ever. But whenever I didn't have him, because at this point, his biological dad's sisters would get him every other weekend to spend time with him. But he was still not really a part of his life. He would see him occasionally, but he never helped financially, and he was still having addiction issues. Well, whenever I didn't have my son, I went out and partied. I did my thing. I was like, you know what? I'm still young. I'm only young once. I'm going to go for it. And then the drinking started to become an issue. And I used drinking as an out. I used it as a, you know, numbing agency. I used it as, you know, this makes me feel better. It makes me not think about how shitty of a person I am all the time. And, you know, then I lost a few really good friends. And that in itself put me into a depression, because whenever, you know, you lose someone who's older and who is supposed to pass away of old age or whatever the case may be, it's one thing. But whenever you lose close friends in age, and it's, you know, they're your age, you party with them, you hang out with them, you know, you can relate to them, they can relate to you, you spend time with them, and then they're suddenly gone, and you're like, why them? Why not me? Like, why did God or whoever you believe in take their life? What did they do wrong? You know? And I mean, it's just, I went through such a depressed state for a really long time. And then I met my fiance. And what's really weird, and to not get off subject, but I actually, we knew each other. We knew each other from back in high school. But we reunited at my best friend's funeral. He was there. I was there. And after the funeral, we went out for drinks, and the rest is history. Like, literally, it's weird. It's really weird. But I fell in love fast. We fell in love fast, and I had never been happier or felt more comfortable or just was carefree, but not carefree in a sense. Like, you know, with every other relationship I had been in since having my son, I was just so sheltered because I was so scared to get hurt. I was so scared for them to hurt my son. I was so scared of making the wrong decisions for him or for me, or for him to get attached to someone and then they leave. But with my fiance, it clicked. I mean, like, we just clicked. It never felt weird. There was never an awkward stage, if that makes sense. We just clicked. And literally within, I want to say, like 3 months of our relationship, I found out I was pregnant with our daughter. And, you know, the newness of our relationship was wearing off. And then you throw a new baby into the mix on top of my son, and then he also has a son from a previous relationship. So here we are now in a new relationship with 3 kids and a house at this point, because we moved in together, and bills and all those other things that come along with, you know, being an adult. And we realized that yes, we were compatible in a lot of ways, but we were not compatible whenever it came to financial things. I'm very good with money. I'm very good at budgeting. I'm very good at paying bills on time. I'm very good at making sure before we go and have fun and do our, you know, crazy let's YOLO type things, that my bills are taken care of. My kids are taken care of. They have everything they need. And not saying that he wasn't wanting to take care of his kids or take care of our bills. He just didn't think the way I did whenever it came to things like that. And that's when our issues started, in a sense. And it took us a while. We've been together almost 3 years now. And don't get me wrong, I love him. We honestly have an amazing relationship. I literally can't complain. He takes care of our family. I was a stay-at-home mom for the first year of my daughter's life. And then we decided for me to get like a part-time job, so I now work on weekends just to bring in extra money. And you know, the financial struggles will never go away. If you're gonna fight about anything in a relationship, I guarantee you it's about finances. Like, every relationship that you have is gonna be about kids, finances, yeah, I mean, like, that's it. Like, that was also a big thing, is we have very different parenting, disciplining views. But he is an amazing stepdad to my son. He's an amazing dad to his son, and he's an amazing dad to our daughter. But regardless of our amazing relationship and our amazing kids and the life that we live and the home that we have and the vehicles that we have and the jobs that we have and the things that we get to do, I went again from working full-time, being a single mom, to my son, to being in a relationship and pregnant. And then once I had my daughter, I quit my job because I was breastfeeding, and childcare for 2 kids is freaking outrageous. So I went back to being a stay-at-home mom, and it was really hard for me because I had depended solely on myself for 3.5 years since having my son. And then now I'm depending on someone else to provide for our family. And I wasn't in control of the money, and I wasn't in control of making the money. I felt out of control again, and I lost sense of who I was. I went from being a very independent, get shit done type of woman to having to depend solely on someone else. And it just kind of sent me back to whenever my son was born, and my ex was really controlling. And not saying that my fiance is that controlling at all whatsoever. I mean, he's really not controlling at all. But it made me just feel really vulnerable again. And like I would have no say in anything that we did. And it scared me. And it sent me into a depression. And honestly, I still struggle with it from time to time, because we have gone through our financial struggles. We have gone through, you know, our fights and our months that were just overwhelmingly stressful. But I am finding out who I am again, what I need. You know, I just signed up for school. My son started preschool, so it's just me and my daughter during the days, most days. And you know, I'm deciding what I want to do with my life again. You know, I got my tubes tied, so I won't be having any more kids. And so I feel like it's my time. Like, even though I am almost 25 at this point, I'm ready to do what's best for me. And I'm ready to get out of this depression. I'm ready to, you know, go forward with my life. And I know that a lot of other moms probably struggle with, you know, being a stay-at-home mom and not having any control over finances or going anywhere, or, you know, having friends, because I struggle with having friends for some reason. And, you know, just do what you want to do. You know, to be a good mom, you have to be a happy person. To, you know, be a good wife and to love someone else, you have to love yourself first. And so if you're struggling, do something that's going to make you happy. You know, if that's being a stay-at-home mom and you're perfectly fine with it, but you need to get out, then go join mommy groups, go to the library, go to story time, go to the park. You know, if you're being a working mom and you struggle with trying to find times with your kids, you know, schedule time with your kids. You know, go pick them up early one day and just take them to do something. Or, you know, whenever you get off of work, don't worry about dinner some nights. Just throw some chicken nuggets in the oven and spend some time with your kids. Like, do something that's going to make you happy. And everybody's happiness looks different. And, you know, right now my happiness is I need to focus on myself for the first time in almost 6 years. And although, you know, some people may be like, oh, that's selfish, you have kids. Well, you know what? My kids need me to be happy. My kids need me to succeed. My kids need me to feel worthy and accomplished. And so I'm going to do what I feel is best for not only them, but for myself. And being in a depression, you know, being in the state of mind where you're just like, I don't feel like doing anything today. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Like, that's not good for your kids. So I guess what I'm saying is depression is hard and it sucks sometimes, but you have ways to deal with it. And even if that means medication, even if you need help, or even if you want somebody to talk to, you know, reach out, talk to somebody, talk to me, you know. But anyways, guys, I know this was a really long video and I'm sure it's kind of jumbled and everywhere, but I just felt really strongly about the topic, and mainly because I've dealt with it for a really long time now. So I really hope that this makes sense and it touches somebody's heart. And if you ever want to talk, reach out to me. And I hope that y'all have an amazing day. Have a good day. Bye.